Hello, thank you again for joining us on the Coaching for Tomorrow podcast. Today, I'm really excited. This is a second go around with this amazing woman, Deanna. We did this once before, years ago when I first started this podcast, and it didn't work. It was like poor internet service. I was sitting on my son's bed with my laptop. It was crazy. But then over the years, life got in the way, but here we are, we're back again. Deanna is somebody that I think everybody should know. Her passion for what she does, her passion for living life, her demeanor and her energy are just completely infectious in a great and wonderful way. I am so excited for this one. I'm really going to try hard to keep this in a normal time frame because I think I could probably talk to you till next week. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring on Deanna, who is Be Free with D. Hey, Deanna, how are you?
Hello, how are you? That was also like the nicest introduction that I think anyone has ever given me.
And so true. And so very true. I really am excited to have you on. We've like reached out back and forth over the years, like, hey, now? No, not now. Hey, now? No, maybe later. Life, this and that, whatever.
Yes.
But here we are. For some reason, it's happening today, and I'm so happy that it is.
Yep.
So we start out with your journey. What was your journey like? How did it bring you to where you are today?
Yeah, so I feel like when I talk about like why I got into nutrition or like why I even got into health, like I always try to keep it short and sweet, but I really feel like the human story is like very interesting. So like I feel like mine is also like very deep as well, even though I'm trying to be short with it. So I want to say like looking back, my when I first got into health, it was like right after my dad passed away. So like we've spoke before about this. So like death is definitely a really something that affects us a lot and everyone kind of deals with it differently. So me and my dad and my cousin we were in a car accident when I was younger. And then that's how he passed away. So I was 12, which is a really like difficult time to I think lose a family figure or a parent because you're in those formative years. Like you're about to like be shot into your teenage years. So there's a lot of emotions going on. And I think that it was like a fear of death thing. Like when I really am try to get very introspective about it, I really truly feel like I'm a young person. I see this person die and I just have to understand death. Like, what is this? What is this life? I got like very into what is life, biology, religion. I got like really into all of it like right afterwards because I feel like I'm a very curious person and that just shot me right into it. So I just wanted to understand like the why. And that eventually led me into health and nutrition because I was like, all right, if I want to have control of my life, which is a whole other topic I can go into, but if I want to have control over my destiny, over my life, and over how long I can be on this in this world, then I want to be able to take care of it. So that shot me into just looking at my health. Unfortunately, it kind of went like full blown disorder because 12, 13, 14, think about the thoughts that are going through our like minds as young girls. Specifically, like we are so judgmental of our bodies. It's growing, it's changing, and the combination of all of that um, definitely shifted me into a little bit more of an unhealthy relationship with food. Like there was definitely some true love and self care in there, but it was definitely tangled in disorder for sure. So I got into health, I got into nutrition, skin health, like I was very into it. But then I started to get really disordered behaviors that I only realized as I got older. So like I was throwing up food, I was limiting my calorie intake, I was exercising a lot, like running. Like if I thought I ate too much, I would run like an extra hour. Um, physically, I was just like very critical of my body, making sure like this, like I looked a certain way. And I'm already a small person, so I was just like trying to keep it very small, very restrictive. Um, and then eventually I decided, oh, I want to go to school for this. And then when I was like 17, 18, I graduated and then went right into my my program at Suffolk, which is the dietetic tech program. It's like the baby version of my degree. And I was still definitely having disordered behaviors like in that. Like I would like I remember we did like a an intake project. So we would track our meals for 3 days. And this was supposed to be like a project to give you a better idea of what you might do with like a client or a patient or something. And I found, recently stumbled upon it, I think like last year when I was moving, and my calorie intake was like 1,000 calories some days, 800. It was so low. And I really didn't realize the disorder of that. It was almost like joy. I was like, look how little I can eat. Look how small I can be. You know, look how little and restricted I can do. Look at my regimen. And so I had these disordered behaviors without a doubt through 18, 19, 20, probably until I graduated, which I was like 24, 25-ish. And around those ages is when I really started to realize that it was disordered. And then I really started working on undoing that and really creating a more loving and nourishing relationship with my body. And then the other aspect of why I got into health too is because I also struggled with a lot of GI issues. I had chronic constipation, chronic bloating, and gas, likely secondary to all my disordered eating and eating disorder behaviors. Also, stress, which we talk about as well. It has a direct impact in our health and our digestive system and pretty much every system in our body. So I dealt with a lot of trauma. Like I bring up like I got into a tragic accident, like that has direct impact on my health. A lot of anxiety related things. So there was just like a shitstorm of stuff happening. And luckily there was a tiny eye in me that was seeing like the true aspect of like, wow, this is so related to nutrition. But I really didn't like connect with that true vision until I got a little bit older and I was more mature. So like now I'm at the point, I'm 30 now, and I've been at the point where I'm really trying to deeply, deeply every day, because there's endless information, understand and connect with the relationship between our life experiences and our health, and our relationship with food and our health, and just eating nutritiously and how to nourish our bodies, but also have a good relationship with food, where fun food falls into play, where functional meals fall into play. Like I'm really trying to understand that every day and then also be able to give that knowledge to people too, because I'm a natural educator. I don't harbor information. I'm talkative. I don't shut up. It's the Italian nature in me. So I want people to know exactly what I know, and I want to really help people. So just taking my personal experience and understanding all of that and then combining it with my education, that's really like what I try to do. So I guess I kind of answered the question maybe
Good
more than I
answer.
was. Sorry. Yeah, like I said, I don't shut up. I just like
No,
go.
you totally answered, and I wanna highlight a couple things in what you said. For the people listening, I wanna highlight 2 words that really come to mind, which was insight and mindfulness. And I think that the curiosity that you had about mortality really drove you to the point of where you are today, and it'll probably always be a driving force for you. To understand that from 12 to 24, you were insightful enough and mindful enough to be on this messy journey of really understanding why, what was going on with you, um, the intentions that you had behind gaining health, behind the weight, behind the eating, behind the health goals and all that stuff. And then to understand that as you were going through school, you were getting support without even knowing that you were getting support. By gaining the knowledge and the information that you were gaining, it was almost like you were like therapizing yourself through that information, where you were planting seeds within your mind, within your subconscious self of like, uh, healthy caloric intake and healthy, I don't really know a lot about dietetic
That's
things,
okay.
all the things. And so then when you hit 24, there's a space where you go, probably looking back, you know you're in this space of like hypervigilance, you know you're in this space of trauma, and you know that you're in this space of growth mindset at the same time. So how do you balance all three? of acknowledging and understanding hypervigilance and the trauma and wanting to grow through that to be in a better space. And I can almost like envision you at 24 looking back over the 12 years and seeing, maybe seeing you for the first time, how little you were, how much you ran after eating what you thought was too much versus what you think is too much today at 24 versus 15, 16, 17, and understanding the mindset that you were in at 16, 17. So I want to highlight that because I think for the people listening, the fact of being curious, having insight, and being mindful of the experience that you had, the thoughts that you were having, the drive that you had, the motivation, the effort, the want, the desire, is what led you to where you are today. And turning that pain into a passion, I think just I like we talked about, I love that because I think you're unstoppable when you have that, because the human piece of that is forever a drive, forever. And no matter what I bring to you, she brings to you, he brings to you about what should I have, what should he has, what should she has, you're like, I got you. I know shit. I got shit,
Yeah,
you
I
know?
always try to look at it from the human perspective too. Like I like one of the best responses I get from people, and one of the most consistent is like they're like, "Thank you for just being so realistic." And it's like I understand. Like I have dealt with so many things. I understand what it's like to be in so many different places, whether it's dealing with hard things in our lives, dealing with trauma, dealing with disordered eating patterns, dealing with health issues, like feeling not feel having validation in our health
Yeah.
symptoms. I've been there, like just having that, and just I really just try to support people not as a practitioner, but also just like as a person. But I also wanted to highlight when you were talking about school, which is what's funny about like diet, like getting your becoming a dietitian, and many dietitians will agree, the education behind it actually reinforces disordered eating habits, which is very hard. So you'll actually find a lot of dietitians that have that almost were positively reinforced during their education of their disordered eating behaviors. So it's honestly it's really hard. It's like as you're going through school, it's almost amplified. So for a lot of women, it's a very female based field. For a lot of the women or men that were in the field I've spoken with, it's like a lot of times like a lot of the disordered behaviors that they had were accepted and yeah,
Championed.
accepted. And so it's kind of so it honestly really didn't happen until like afterwards. Like even while the school, I was like, oh yeah, this is good. Like, oh, my BMI is 18, which is underweight now. I'm like, oh, great. Like, can it go lower? So it's like you get it positively reinforces a negative aspect of health, which sucks. But it's
Wow.
something that's again a whole other conversation I could have
Yeah.
about my field, which is sucks. But yeah, so yeah, I just wanted to add that. I had to I always have to let people know it's crazy out there.
Yeah, it is crazy out there. So where did you start to get the information that kind of brought you into this like the healthier space of health and of dieting and of all that stuff?
Sure. Honestly, it was a little more like I think it was something just clicked. And I would say I started to get really severe gastrointestinal issues in like 2017. I deal with a lot of like PTSD related anxiety. So like it's something that I work on, and I think it directly affects my GI. And I think it was just after school, there was so much going on, it just blew up. And I had all these GI symptoms, and it was like I had to turn my attention towards it. So I think sometimes with people, it's like there's a natural progression that maybe at some point we'll understand, but other times it's like the gaslight just goes on and then your car breaks. So it's like that's kind of what happened to me. It's like I had no other choice but to actually look at my health, because my body was like, hey girl, like there's something going on and you have to address it now. And that's sort of what happened. And then I really started to get very in tune with my body, really understand what was going on. And then that also sort of gave me the awareness to reflect on everything else that I was doing in the past years. And then realizing, like, oh, geez, like I was under feeling, oh my gosh, that was disordered. I did not realize. Um, So that was really sort of the turning point for me. Is it's like it wasn't as graceful and natural as it was like emergent.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And so did you seek support throughout this whole journey? Did you seek support with medical, with psychological? Did you seek support to kind of help you, guide you through that PTSD, brought on anxiety, guide you towards the physical?
I wish that I did. I mean, again, like when as you get older, I mean, we always look back with like the vision of like, oh, I should have done that, you know. But in hindsight, I definitely didn't seek the support that I probably needed at that time. I really try to emphasize to friends that are younger the value of therapy and the value of not even just therapy, but what is your therapy? What are if it's not going to be talking to someone, where are you finding support? Where are you finding release? Where are you working through the things in your head or your body rather? So in terms of like emotional support, I really didn't seek the professional support that I probably needed at that time, and I think I put a lot of support in maybe my support systems like friends and partners. And then in terms of health, I did. Yeah, I started seeking medical help. But I mean, for most of us that deal with chronic symptoms or chronic illnesses, we all know that it's pretty rough to find a practitioner that is supportive and validating. So it's been years. It's still something that I'm working through in my life. And only now am I finding practitioners that are very supportive and are giving
Yes.
me the care that I need. It takes
Yeah.
a while. But yeah, I mean, if you've ever gone to the doctors and they don't even look up from their
Yeah.
sheet, they,
Walk out.
dismiss.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think probably anyone across the board, even if they don't like experience chronic symptoms, like they've had that where they're like, I think I'm sick. They're like, I don't know, here's an antibiotic. Bye.
Yeah.
Uh, not to say anything negative about doctors. I know a few fantastic practitioners, but unfortunately, it's like foreign. Like it's
Yeah.
not like 1 in 100.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. And I have a couple of doctors on my list that I'm like, will never let go of. Like they can never retire, they can never die. They have to live forever until I die or my kids die
Yes, yes.
because they're phenomenal and they go beyond. They bring that personal piece into it and they actually listen and they take the time and oh my God, it's like crazy. But yes, I've had both experiences. So I think for me as a coach, when I'm working with couples, we talk about the interdependence in a relationship between two people. And the interdependence is that I'm dependent, you're dependent, and together we can depend on each other. And so there's this balance of things, and health comes up a lot, especially as we're getting older, whether that be addiction, whether that be weight, I almost said wealth, weight, whether that be energy, sexual desire, so much is under the umbrella of health. I mean, that's why this whole industry is called health and wellness, right? Because there's all kinds of health. So a lot of people don't want to seek support for the reasons of just go on this diet, just you have to just get up and move, like you have to go work at a gym, do keto, do paleo, do cut out all sugar, stop completely drinking soda, whatever, what else, whatever. Like for me to hear those things, I'm like, hell no, hell no. I just started my Fitness Pal app yesterday, right? And I ate like 7 Halloween Hershey Kisses, but the rest of my day I did really good. And I don't feel guilty about it at all. I also had tortilla chips and cheese dip at night. I put it on my app. I went over my calories that day, my target goal, but I hit all my iron. I hit all my protein. Like, so I think for me, just kind of looking at that, that's a squirrel sidetrack. But going back to the couples, if I have two people in front of me and we're talking about health and we're talking about wellness and they don't really want to go see a doctor, they don't really want to go see a dietitian, they get overwhelmed when they think about going to a gym, they get overwhelmed when we start talking about dieting, but they aren't happy with their body. They don't like the way they look. They are low energy. They're falling asleep sitting on the couch. They don't go play with their kids. They are struggling. This is a huge weight on the marriage. It's a huge weight. And you and I talked about prior, what's the longest relationship that you're going to have? It's the one that you have with self. So when we're talking about interdependence, not only does it help the marriage or the relationship, the couple, but it really helps the relationship with self to put in the effort and do the things. So there was a couple things that you wanted to kind of talk about that I mentioned to you if you had 30 minutes to just talk about something, what would it be? And you talked about some really key points that I really would love for you to share because I think it's a great starting point of not having to step out of a comfort zone too much and still stepping into a zone of forward movement towards health. Do you remember what those were? The protein.
Yeah, yeah, I have them. I got them. Don't
Yeah, yeah,
worry.
you got 'em. You talk about them all the time. All right, ready?
Yeah, yeah.
Share.
So, you want me to bring up all the points because I can probably chat about all because I think I mentioned a few different bullet points, so I can
Yeah.
go through them if you'd like. Yeah. So the first point is why I feel it's so important to have a healthy relationship with food. I'll really just start off with that one. Just similar to like the longest relationship we'll ever have is ourself. Also, we're always gonna have to eat. I always try to emphasize this to people. So it's like a meal is always going to come, like you're always going to have to eat food. So it's like that thing, like especially people that have disordered relationships with food, it's almost like traumatic each time a meal comes. Somebody that's a chronic dieter, it's like, oh my god, another meal. Oh my god, another struggle, another struggle. It can be really hard for people. So we really want to I really want to emphasize why it's important to have a healthy relationship with food. One, obviously, like I said, we're consuming meals, we need it to survive. But also, it's going to help us navigate life so much easier because along with food, think about not just your regular 3 meals a day, but think about any party you go to. Think about like our culture as like humans, and then also maybe in like maybe it's like individual cultures, whether it's family or whether it's like where you're from. A lot of it is centered around food. There's an ethnic meal, there's a Christmas meal, there's a religious meal, there's a holiday meal, there's a celebratory meal. Like it's always around food. We go to a Super Bowl party, there's chips and dip. You go to a birthday party, there's cake. Like you're always going to have to navigate it. So to have that be something that you don't have a good relationship with, I think is so stressful. Think about going to a party and someone that you don't like is there every single time. Like
Mm,
it's going to be so stressful for you because then you're going to have to like work around that the whole time.
wow.
Wouldn't it be better just to meet them face to face and be like, hey, we got some beef, let's work it out. And then every time you see that person, it's totally fine. You might not be best friends, but you guys are cool with each other. And the same thing applies to food. It's like you don't have to like have a phenomenal relationship with food, but if you can at least get to those like basic neutrality points and like get to a healed relationship where like you don't hate yourself and you can work through a meal and you know how to plan, like that's so important. Um, Also too, it helps us improve our health outcomes. So like healthy relationship with food is like difficult for people to understand, I think, 'cause it's not very tangible. Like it's like versus like lab values. Like if I tell someone do this and then your lab value will be higher or lower, they can see that result.
Mm,
Whereas having a healthy relationship with food is like much more abstract. It's an idea, it's a relationship, it's a feeling. Like people can't always tie physical to it. So it can be maybe a little bit harder for people to understand the value behind it. They're like, well, what's the point? It's like, well, you got it. All the points I just said, like you want to be able to live a little bit more stress free. But in terms of health outcomes too, if you have a healthy relationship with food, you can have a more balanced relationship with food. So there's going to be less all or nothing mindset, right? So
mm,
let's say somebody has high cholesterol, let's say they have diabetes, let's say they have, maybe they're in a weight class that's heavier and it's affecting their health. I don't really like to use the term overweight because I really, in my opinion, feel that it's what is overweight. And that's a whole other conversation. The silliness of BMI. But when people have health conditions, they're able to approach the healing of those health conditions more balanced and more focused and more streamlined when they don't have that diet mindset and when they have a healthy relationship with food. For example, I have people that are diabetic and they have a poor relationship with food. So they come to me and they're like, "Oh, well, I cut out all the carbs." I'm like, "Why?" I'm like, "Because carbs are bad." It's like, "No. Hold on. Put the brakes on. We need carbohydrates to exist. You need carbohydrates to exist as a diabetic. I'm sorry that society has told you the wrong information, but, and then there's a lot of unlearning and
yeah.
then And if we just had a healthier relation with food and a little bit of nutrition knowledge, all of that wouldn't have happened, and we would have been able to improve their health outcome quicker and more efficiently.
Right.
So it's it's across the board beneficial. And then I always like to bring it into family dynamic and like children. Like if you have a healthy relationship with food, it directly affects your partner and it directly affects your children. I don't have kids, I have niece and nephews. I want to have kids one day, and I know for a fact if my daughter or son was like showing signs of having a disordered eating relationship, disordered eating patterns, or having a poor relationship with food, I would feel so sad because I want them to like enjoy fun foods. I
Mhm.
want them to nourish their bodies. Like, so look, like, and then your partners too. Like, imagine going out to dinner with somebody that has a shitty relationship with food. They're gonna be like, no, sorry, I can't have that. It's like, but honey, like, it's pizza night. Like, we're supposed to be relaxed, like enjoying ourselves. It's like, no, sorry, can't. So, meanwhile, most people can, and they just don't understand how to establish balance. So, it's so imperative to have a healthy relationship with food for that reason. So, that's something I could literally talk about on a what is that called? I want to say milk crate, but I know that's not it. On my what is it called when you like talk about something on something?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Not
Yeah,
podium.
platform, podium.
Yeah,
Milk crate works too.
I'm gonna remember later. It's gonna be so
Yes.
milk crate.
Really quick, I want to highlight something that you said, which I really love how you created it as a person. The food, the health, the relationship with food, because talking about tangible, what I use a lot in visualizing with my couples is to make something, an emotion, a thing, a person. Like it's an actual separate piece. It's not who they are. It's not their character flaw. It's actually like in a completely separate relationship that you look at as a person. We name it, we give it a name. What does it look like? We use all the things for visualization. If it's a texture, if it's a color, if it's a smell, if it's a thing. And so when you think of that thing, you can actually work on it more because it's like you said, it's a tangible thing. I'll have them draw it. We'll print it up. We'll tape it to the wall. There it is. It's Freddie. Freddie, my health, my relationship with food, right? There it is. Freddie, the food guru. And so I love that you I couldn't think of monster, but maybe it's a monster at first then. But I love how you said that. Like if you were going to a party every time you went anywhere and there's a person that you don't like there, how are you gonna feel? Versus if you meet them face to face and hey, say we have beef, let's work this out. And it creates a whole different space for you. So make that person, make your ideas, your values, your thoughts around food first, identify the thoughts, define the feelings you have towards food, then make it into a person, make it into a thing. I love that.
I love that you
Okay.
said that too. When I was in my yoga training, something that we did with energy work, you do the same thing. You take it out and you make it like a person. And then also too, same thing with health identifiers. I think a lot of times people they combine their health issues with their self. So it's like they become I am my disease, I am my disorder, I am my whatever
Yes.
instead of why I'm here. Whereas a lot of times like I tell people to take it out. It's like you don't have diabetes, you don't have a X, Y, and Z. You struggle with it.
Right.
It's in there with you, but like it's not you. So it's like I love that you also do that with your clients too, because like it's so important for people to like unstick those things, you
Right.
know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. Because there's so many pieces of us.
Yeah.
Why don't you sit in all the good things? Like I'm an active listener. I am an active listener. No, I'm only the negative. Like that's what really I wear all the time. And so yeah, it's a piece, it's a part of you, but just as you're an active listener and you're a great cook, doesn't mean you always will be, doesn't mean you are every single moment of every day. So the same with the negatives. And yeah, but I really love how you so I wanted to highlight that for people as a tangible tip in this conversation to take that and run with it. That's a journaling. I always say I have Evernote because I don't like to journal, or I do like to journal, but I find it more effective to just audio record myself on Evernote and listen back to it. And then I title it what it is so that if I want to listen back to it, I can, or I just do talk to text and then I can read it later.
Yeah.
Because I'm all about efficiency.
Same.
So continuing on now, I have been hearing a lot about protein
Yes,
and women especially having a difficult or a lower we typically have like a lower quantity of
sure.
protein, not even knowing that we're not getting enough protein.
Sure.
Is that true?
It's it can be true. It's not
Okay.
always, it can be, sure. So protein is like something that it could literally be a 2-hour conversation because it's so multifaceted. But I'll try my best to make it as clear cut as possible, which is probably one of, I'm such a rambler. So let me try to make it work. So I'm trying not to go down my own rabbit holes. So in terms of protein, there is such buzz around it right now. And I always like to tell people, I'm like, health is a buzz industry. Like I hate that it's even an industry in the first place. Like it should just be like, just exist. It shouldn't be a money making thing. But either way, that also happens with protein. You'll notice maybe in advertising recently, you'll see something like high protein. It's like, oh, so a lot of people are focusing on protein right now. Um, Excuse me, I think that it comes a little bit from keto, a little bit, and a little bit from low carb. But a lot of people, especially in the wellness and fitness industry, are seeing the importance of protein. When I went to school, the recommendations for protein were much lower than what we're realizing now. A lot of studies that have been in the works are coming out now in the last 5 years or so and saying, hey, that is kind of like the minimum, but we really want to look at the optimal, if that makes sense. So it really, protein intake is kind of a range, right? There's a minimum that we want to be, that it's going to be the minimum requirement, which is 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. That was the recommendation. Most of our recommendations are in kilograms, unfortunately. But so that was always the recommendation. So let's say I'll just do like a really basic one. Let's say someone was 150 pounds. You divide it by 2.2, that gives kilograms, and they'd be 68 kilograms, which means they would only need about 68 grams of protein per day. That was always the recommendation. So when I was in school, that was what I was recommending. And I think a lot of trainers and a lot of personal trainers already kind of had a hunch that higher protein intake was required, but I think that the research wasn't there yet. And I'm all science. I'm intuitive as well, but I also like to trust what information we have. So now that I see the science, I can adjust my position on protein. Now we know we need a lot more. The general recommendation is about 1 gram of protein per pounds of body weight. So if someone's 100 pounds, they would need about 100 grams. But I really don't think that people should take that as blanket advice. You really should seek somebody to help you find your needs, because everyone's protein needs are going to be different. For example, if someone has renal insufficiency, let's say they have kidney disease, let's say that they're on a certain medication, let's say they have a certain medical implication, their protein requirements are going to be a little bit different. So you always want to be mindful of that. But the general rule of thumb about now is about 1 gram of protein per body weight, give or take. Um, so for a lot of people, that's a lot of freaking protein. If someone's 150 pounds, that's like 150 grams of protein. That is a lot. It's obviously going to change depending on your physical activity. If someone weight trains, if someone doesn't weight train, like it's definitely going to change. I would say do what feels good for you and start out slow. Um, but yeah, so in terms of protein consumption, there's a lot of benefits to consuming an adequate amount of protein. So the first thing is that protein is the most satiating macronutrient. So macronutrients are proteins, carbs, and fats. Protein is the most satiating, which means it's going to keep us fuller for longer. For example, if you eat a piece of toast, you're probably going to be hungry within 30 to 45 minutes. But if you have toast with an egg on it, or if you have, cottage cheese or something like that, or have a protein, whatever, if your meal is protein dense, you're likely going to be fuller for longer, more satiated. You're not going to be thinking about food, and you can go about 3 to 4 hours until your next meal. So it's the most satiating, and that's going to be beneficial for a lot of different reasons. One, we don't really want to be snacking all the time. It's just not great for our digestion. We do need some space between meals. But also we want to make our meals work for us. If our meals aren't satiating us, what the hell are we doing? I've got work to do. I can't eat every 2 hours. I'm busy. So we want to make sure that our meals are protein dense so it actually fills us up. It does a good job. This is going to also support hormone balance as we move from meal to meal. So it's beneficial for that reason as well. Also, keeping us full is going to assist in weight management. For people who are looking for weight loss or weight maintenance, having a filling meal is going to allow us to feel fuller during the day and have less cravings because our body's not looking for food as much because we're filling up.
Mhm.
That's another benefit as well. Another fun benefit for weight management is that protein also requires the most energy from our body to break down, which means that it's using calories or energy to break it down. So also for people who also for people who are looking for weight loss or weight management, protein is going to benefit them for that reason as well too. So it's also going to support weight loss for that reason. And then other reasons as well, it's going to support recovery. If you weight train, you want to meet your protein needs. A lot of people are not realizing that they're not meeting their protein needs that way. Women who are nursing or who are pregnant, their protein needs are much higher than when they are not nursing. Also, their calorie needs go up as well too. But you also want to make sure you're meeting your protein needs that way. In terms of like sources of protein, I really emphasize consuming both plant and animal protein sources. If someone's vegan or vegetarian, you're going to have a hard time meeting your protein needs. And that's fine if you want to maintain that lifestyle. I was also a vegetarian and vegan for a while. Um, and looking back, I was wondering why I was cold all the time. I probably didn't have as much iron as I needed to or food. But yes, so you can there are athletes that are vegan. There are athletes that are vegetarian. There are ways to do it. I really feel like everyone's body is so different. That's why I hate
Yeah.
giving blanket advice.
Right.
Ideally, you really want to consume a variety of proteins. So chicken, beef, sure, poultry, whatever you want, but also like quinoa, beans, nuts, seeds. These are also going to help you meet your protein needs.
Yeah.
So like I think a lot of times when we go protein centered, a lot of people are like, all right, just chicken and steak, and then I'll have rice. It's like, no, dude, you still got to eat vegetables and you
Yeah.
still want weight.
Mm.
So it's important to consume a variety of protein sources. It's like there's nothing wrong with having beans with your chicken and your beef cooked out. If you're making, beef stew, adding something to it that's gonna maybe like it's a barley, maybe it's something that's gonna increase a little bit of protein here and there. Maybe it's not your main source, but it's also adding lots of protein as well too. And you're getting the fiber, which is great. Plant proteins also contain fiber, which are beneficial for our health in a million to one ways, a million and one ways. But yeah, and that's like pretty. There's like so like I could go forever, but that's really a
Yeah.
lot of the reason why I encourage people to make sure their meals are protein centered, protein dense. And when I say your meals, I mean like 80 to 90%, because like it can't always happen. But if you can make most of your meals protein centered, especially breakfast and lunch, because you want to start the day off strong. A lot of us have like a yogurt for breakfast, and then like for lunch, just like a salad. And then for dinner, they have all their protein at once. Yes, this
Yeah.
is like this is very, very common. So switching the game and having a lot of your protein at breakfast and lunch is gonna set yourself up. In
Okay.
terms of women, I know I'm so sorry. I like
No,
I
no,
could go.
no. I'm writing it down. I didn't know that. All right, I'm gonna
But
switch.
you said what I could talk about unprompted for 30 minutes. I'm like, oh, I could talk about this for 30 minutes. In terms of women versus men in terms of protein intake, I have a lot of different feelings about this because one, a lot of times women can be smaller stature than men. So that could be maybe a lot of the reason they might need less. But also too, think about the way that women have been told to exist. Be smaller, be less, do less, eat less,
Yeah.
be make less.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's
Everything less. Just everything less.
exactly so.
Except chores.
Yeah, do more there. By the way, can you do 800 different tasks at the same time? Like
Yeah.
I'm a girl's girl, so I'm very women um supported. I feel a lot of ways about with our men versus women, the dynamic in society. So
Egalitarian.
yeah, yeah, I want everyone to be on the same page and
Yes.
mutual respect, but I've got a lot of feelings. But
Yes.
anyway, yeah. So but yeah, so think about like, I mean, obviously you're agreeing, like for anyone that's listening, like really tune into the way that you have been like designed to think about yourself as a woman. If you're a woman, and if you're a man, think about it from a woman's perspective for a moment. How does it feel to have society tell you you have to be less, eat less, do less? If your man's plate is big and then, oh, my plate's just little, I'm just a little, I need to be saved, I'm so small. Like this is a lot of the times that women are pressured to be. And I love the weight training space in the last few years because women galore. In the gyms, I think that women weren't as comfortable, and now like we're in a place where like women are badass. We're so capable,
Yep.
and seeing them consume lots of calories and gains, physical gains, and push weights, it's awesome. So women do require a decent amount of protein just as men. Men's needs are usually slightly higher, but only because a lot of times men might be a higher weight class than us. Maybe
Yeah.
they're pushing more weight than we need to. But yeah, I always encourage women specifically, like, don't be scared to consume protein. Um, you don't
Yeah.
be scared to even to consume more than you think is actually okay, because a lot of times it's actually what you need.
Right.
Um, so yeah, so women just like having the approval and the validation and the acceptance to be like, hey, this is a safe space, nourish your body, eat enough. You're allowed to eat enough. You are of value, especially moms. Like, hey mom, I know you fed your 3 kids. You are now allowed to eat. Chicken nuggets on your salad is totally fine. That's a source of protein. Like
Right.
it's
Good. Good, because I'm always eating off my kids' plates.
yeah, so just being able to like have that permission, I think specifically when I'm talking to women and to moms, having the permission to consume enough, and knowing that like an imperfect plate, even as long as it's protein centered, is cool, then that's okay.
Yeah.
But that's like, oh, it's a soapbox.
Soapbox. There you
Well,
go.
soapbox about protein there. What the hell did I call it before? I don't remember.
Milk crate. Soapbox is something you stand on to get higher than everybody to
That's what
say
it
what
is.
you want to say. We got it.
Yes.
So what I hear is a diary. What I'm hearing you say is a diary because we're talking about each individual body, each individual needs, each individual lives, each individual things, likes and dislikes, disorders or not disorders, health issues or non-health issues, marital status, parental status, income status, other things. So what I hear you say is maybe keep a diary. How I'm feeling. Today I increased my protein, and I'm not saying to be compulsively keeping a diary, a noticing of differences with energy levels, with how you feel, with weight, with weight. What I mean by weight is maybe just how you feel in your clothes, how your bra feels today versus tomorrow, right? And just noticing, like, did I wake up easier in the morning? Did I have a little bit more energy throughout my day? Did I overall feel better? Because for me, that's the thing. I don't typically step on a scale. I really don't, because it doesn't really affect the way I feel. If
Exactly.
I ate like shit yesterday, I'm gonna feel like shit today. Whatever the scale tells me, it's not gonna, and I could weigh the exact same 2 weeks later and feel fantastic. So what I'm hearing you say is kind of just keep track, be aware of what you're feeling, and that may be a slight indicator for the people who aren't yet ready to go to the gym, to reach out for seek support from professional. Okay, and there's a lot of sources out there in the world. There's books. Research the authors of the books, who are dietitians, who are health coaches. Research them and see what their um soapbox stance is, and if it kind of fits yours and can help you kind of meet the goals that you want to get to.
Yeah.
My hair is like just falling out everywhere. um so then we talk about, I know you talked a little bit about you talked a lot about your lived experiences and trauma impacting your health.
Yeah.
And and then you bring up the gut-brain connection plus the vagus nerve.
Yes, the vagus
And
nerve.
it's
Love
so yes, and so funny because a lot of health classes for massage therapy, and then I got my A in public health. So one of my favorite teachers is Indian. I don't say was, I'm assuming she's still alive. And so, like, I don't say esophagus anymore, I say esophagus
that. Okay. I love
because that's just how she said it, and then the vagus nerve.
August. Yeah, I've heard people say that
Vagus.
with the accent. Yeah.
Yes, so Vegas, vagus, however you say it, Vagus. Can you tell us
Yes.
a little bit more about that? The gut-brain
Yeah.
connection plus that?
Yes. So this is one of my favorite topics. I'm my root is integrative, so I love these topics. So like you said, I talked a lot about our lived experience and how trauma, like and our experiences directly affect our health. Some questions when I work with clients that they're so surprised to hear is I dig into their past. Like, how was your relationship with your parents? What was your relationship as a child? What was your parents' relationship with food? What did health look like for you when you were younger? What does health look like for you now? What were the messages that you received when you were younger that you have maybe not questioned when you're older? What were those things that you subconsciously picked up on that are a part of you that maybe we should look back and question? One a book that I always recommend to my clients is the Four Agreements. While I do think it can be a little bit redundant of a book in terms of explanation, I think it does a really good job at emphasizing to people that we need to question what we learn and what we know. What's in our like what is normalized and is it do we agree? Is it normal? Is it okay? For example, like, like when you grow up, like I'm exactly what I'm saying. It's like when did the messages that your parents give you, do you still vibe with them? Do you still agree? Is it part of you? Do you want to release that part of you? Do you want it to be a new thing? So I really dig into a lot of those questions. I talk about death with people. A lot of people that come to me that's like, oh yeah, like my sister died. It's like, well, how did that affect you? Did any health issues happen around those times? Do you still struggle with that stress? When you see that, how does that make you feel? Or I've had clients like, oh, my mom is in the stages of passing. Okay, well, how are you dealing with it? Like, I'm coping with food. How can we shift from coping with food? Actually, is it okay to cope with food? Can you have permission just to cope with food right now? So it's so many different elements that I really try to, like I was saying, like really bring the human aspect into it. It's like health is not just nutrition and nutrition is not just food. Like we are nourishing our body not with just what we eat, but also with what we consume and what we're giving our body. So like if we are consuming stress, if we're consuming sadness, if we're like what we watch on TV, like there's so much to it. So I really like to let people understand that this directly affects your health.
Mhm.
What we are absorbing and what we have absorbed and is maybe still stored in us directly affects our health. It's like, oh, have you been holding on to something with your family, a grudge? Are you constipated? It's these are things that are a little bit more abstract for people sometimes, but it's a very alternative but also sensible way to look at things. It's like, okay, when people are relaxed, a lot of times they poop better. So relaxation is directly affecting our digestive health. It's like the connection between our emotional and mental states and our physical health is so direct. I think a lot of times we separate it, right? It's like we have a GI doctor and a brain doctor and a therapist and a foot doctor. It's like it's all connected. So I really like to emphasize the connection. So that's really more for like how trauma and how experiences directly impact our health. Just even a little bit more example, if someone has experienced sexual violence, they can have a hard time with urination, with constipation. Think about where that energy flow is in your body. So that aspect of our body, our safe space, like that's our root area. So a lot of people that have dealt with childhood trauma or people who have dealt with sexual abuse, a
Yeah.
lot of times they have a hard time with digestion, with urination, with pelvic floor issues. Um, it's something that I think when you open your mind to it, you can see the connection. So I talk a lot about that stuff when it's comfortable and when it's appropriate. Not always, but when it's appropriate. In terms of the gut brain connection, the vagus nerve, like when I discovered the vagus nerve, I was like, oh, this is so cool. Cause you learn about it a little bit in school, but like I'm so busy. I was doing so much. It's like I remember learning about it. And then when I came back to it, I was like, oh, this is badass. The gut brain connection is fantastic. So just to clarify what the gut brain connection is, we have our central nervous system, we have our brain, right? And then we have our enteric nervous system, which is all these nerves in our gut. And they communicate via cranial nerves, for example, the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve runs down from our gut to our brain, and they send signals back and forth to each other. For example, have you ever done a presentation and you get butterflies? That is your gut brain connection.
Mm.
Um, so they interact also by our gut microbiome as well, which is some really fun information that we are learning in research. Um, our flora in our gut, they change. There's different amounts of them. And our brain and our gut microbiome directly communicate. So if we're stressed, if we're happy, if we're sad, like there is research with people who have, and obviously it's like hard because it's like what happens first, the chicken or the egg, but people with anxiety disorders, people with stress or depression have certain microbiome levels or have certain, microbiome pictures, what they look like. Maybe they're depleted in a certain bacteria, or maybe they're elevated in a certain bacteria, and it's pretty consistent across the board. I don't remember all of them, and that's like a big topic either way. But yeah, so I always try to emphasize the connection between those two. So it's like when we arrive to a meal, I try to tell people, I'm like, you gotta take a big belly breath and relax. Because what is also associated with this when I talk about nervous system is, sorry, I'm like getting real sciencey.
I
I'm
love it. I
I'm
love
gonna
it.
nerd out for a second, and I hope we're okay on time. So there is the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. And if we think back to school, we remember these. The sympathetic nervous system is our fight or flight.
Mhm.
So this is like our brain is telling our body to release adrenaline and increase our cortisol and bust out glucose because we need to run from a bear or from some type of threat. So when we are stressed, our sympathetic nervous system, even though our stress isn't a bear, maybe it's our boss or it's a stressful day with the kids, or maybe or it's our stress from our partner or whatever, our sympathetic nervous system still exists just like caveman times, and it elevates all of those things and releases certain things into the body so it can do its thing. We can't really function that well like with that all the time. So the parasympathetic nervous system comes in and works to bring everything back down. Part of the sympathetic nervous system is triggering the HPA axis, which is like where cortisol gets released. Um, so that's a whole other fun topic. But so all of this stress, sympathetic, fight or flight, up, very up, up, up. Parasympathetic is the rest and digest. It's the cool, calm. This is where we want to be when we're eating. So a lot of times I will emphasize people like if you're feeling stressed, or if you have stress, or if you have trouble digesting food, this is the gut brain connection. Take a big belly breath. Like just even that, like it's like you can feel like a little bit of a weight, like kind of wither away. So you can better digest meals. When people are like, oh, I have no GI issues when I'm on vacation, it's like, okay, is it the food or are you relaxed? So is your parasympathetic nervous system just functioning like the way that it wants to? Are you arriving at a meal super relaxed, maybe like a glass of wine in? Like it's probably because the like your gut is in a much better place to it's arriving at the meal in a much better place to support you. It can digest food. When we're stressed out, our body is busy like imagine like we're stressed, we're working at our desk, we're eating, eating, eating. Our body's like, bro, like what? We're up here. What are you doing eating? We
Yeah.
can't do that right now. Like we're busy. Like we're doing like the blood
Yeah.
and the
We're
glucose.
fighting and flighting.
Yes, yes. Whereas when our parasympathetic nervous system is a little like more supported, it's like, oh, like this is what we're focused on. Blood is going to our gut. It's not going to our limbs, to our heart. It's going into our belly. All the energy is going into our gut. We're focusing on digesting. Bile can be excreted. things can be digested, poop can work a little bit better. So it's oh sorry, I'm getting lots of emails, sorry. So let me exit out. Sorry. So having all of those support systems in place, like belly breathing, taking mindfulness cues right before a meal. So for people that have a hard time like taking a second, like I don't know if you utilize this, but it's like name 5 things in the room, look at 5 colors. It's like, all right, that's green, that's gold, that's teal. Okay, I'm back in my body, I'm back in my
Yeah.
space. Like how does this meal smell? Oh, it smells good. Okay. Oh, okay. Like now you're in it. Like so now there's this kind of connection again. So I really emphasize mindfulness in my coaching because it indirectly is going to help support your nervous system so you can function better, and then also your health can be a little bit better as well. So it's like sometimes I tell people to do something and they're like, well, why the hell, why? And I'm like, well, it's all this science stuff, but I promise just do it. Like, don't make me explain because I'll go on a tangent.
Oh, right.
Yes, but it's true. It's like there's such a connection between our gut. Like they say, I'm reading the gut brain connection. I'm like halfway through it. It's like one of my favorite books. And they talk about like when we were just like simple beings, and I'm pretty sure it was just our digestive system and our like brain systems, like when we were just like little jellies in the ocean and nothing else. um if I recall from the book, I'm pretty sure that the digestive system was still there, so it's like it's one of the oldest systems. So like there is so much connection that's so old and so like beyond even like our understanding, and there's probably so much more communication that like we haven't even tapped into that's happening. And that's why like it's so important to understand that we're like it's a connected flesh ball. Like we're
Right.
all it's all doing the thing. We just have to tap in to what our body is telling us a lot of times, and just like give ourselves the space to like connect with our body a little bit. Soapbox done. Sorry.
You're so funny. I no, I love it. And there is a lot of information and it's all really beneficial. Um, I've been a massage therapist for over 20 years, and I could tell you countless stories of, like you were talking about, the emotional and the physical kind of colliding together because one is the other. I mean, it's not it's not because of, it's like no, it's both. They're existing because of the other. And so many stories and people, yeah, they get really almost like freaked out when you're like, oh, a lot of my moms come in and I'm like, neck and shoulders, headaches, is that da da da, tension, da, da, da," and they're like, yeah, and I'm like, yeah, like typically where women hold it, weight of the world. I'm like, so what are your control? What are your thoughts on controlling things, and how much help do you get, and do you seek support? And they're just like, oh my God. So the kind of the books that come to mind, first of all, any information that you get on chakras is really important, in my opinion. There's a book called The Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Meese or Mice. I don't know how you pronounce her last name, but I read that 20 years ago. And she talks about chakras in there, but she talks about the correlation of stress, the psychological meeting the physical world. When we are homosexual, when we are sexually abused, when we are victims of domestic violence, when we are anything that is trauma based that we hold in a negative space. What I mean by homosexual is I mean homosexual that are fearful, homosexual that are holding back, homosexual that are hiding. When I'm talking about sexual trauma, I'm talking about sexual trauma that is held deep in. We blame, we feel guilty about it, we don't allow ourselves to like love and be loved. When we have something happen to us, or something that is us, that we hold in the shame spiral and the guilt cycle, it turns into this psychological, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical shitstorm. And so the book Anatomy of the Spirit, and then you said gut brain connection book, and then there's also The Body Keeps the Score.
Yes.
That's also a book as well that I recommend, just so that people can get a little bit more after this conversation. Write it down. You're definitely going to need to bring your pen and paper for this. But I love that, and I believe in it 1,000. I mean, I've seen it thousands of times,
A lot of
thousands
times
of times.
see it. Like, I think as practitioners, it's like a lot of times it's like, I can't give you a study, just trust me. It's like
Trust me.
hard studies, but like, are you gonna make me sift through it right now? Like, just
Right.
we see these things. It's very intuitive.
Yeah, and I don't need to give you the scientific studies if I have 20 years of experience. I'll tell you. Let me tell you my client stories. Man, I could tell you story after story. So there's my soapbox. Okay, so the reason I think that people should work with people like you, practitioners like you, homeopathic, holistic, realistic, practical, to take me as I am, help me get to where I want to be. You're not going to tell me, all right, like I said before, cut out all this sugar, don't have any more soda, never have a carb again, da 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 da. You're going to take me how I am. And like I always talk about the guy from Subway. Shit. Jeff?
Yeah, yeah,
The J guy from Subway. Sorry, guy.
yeah, okay.
Okay. He talks about how he goes to Subway, and so many people will poop on Subway. Oh my gosh, the carbs in the bread and the oil and the vinegar and this and that, whatever. There it is. There it is. Jerry. We're thinking of Jake from State Farm.
Jared.
Jerry from Subway. What he did was he took from what he had and he made the steps to get him with his particular self, personality, thoughts, da, 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 to get to where he wanted to be. And that was through Subway, whether that's real or whatever. I love the idea around it. You take me for who I am. I can come to you as I am, and you help me get for me to get. And so we talk a little bit about you talk a little bit about understanding the value behind your change, envisioning what your life would be like with those changes, and then taking messy action. And if you have to follow Be Free with Z, because she talks a lot about these things. Just taking out of a 7-day life week. And if you change one meal, win, win. You've done the thing. You've done the thing. You've taken the positive action. And if you didn't know exactly what you were doing and you were hoping, that's the messy action. And you did it. You took the step, you took the initiative, you did it. That's a win.
Always. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
definitely important to understand that. I think
Yeah.
too, like, to even like what you were saying, like, I 2 points, like, one, meet people where they are. So it's like think about steps on the ladder. If you're on the first step of the ladder, I'm not going to tell you to come up to the fifth step. It's like we're just going to meet you at the first step.
Yeah.
Um, Even if you're on the ground, you haven't gotten the ladder yet. It's like, all right, well, I'm going to sit on the ground with you and we'll work through it. But and then it really reflects like I I'm doing the best I can with the resources I have available. Like that's what I'll, like. It's something that I remember I saw it in like an office like 10 years ago, and I was like, I love that because it's true. It's like sometimes we blame ourselves for not doing something. It's like what you were doing literally the best you could at this time with the resources you had available to you. So it's like, don't blame yourself because people are always only doing the best that they can. So it's so important to look at it from that perspective. I agree.
Yeah, I love that. I read something recently about like giving the percentages. Like if you increase yourself 1% a day by the end of a month, by the end of 6 months, by the end of a year, imagine how much more you'll know, how much more you'll grow. And you just like pick an area, like, oh, well, what's getting in my way this year? Well, kind of my thoughts around money, kind of my thoughts around health. All right, so what percentage am I at with those thoughts? Well, I'm fucking zero.
Yeah.
Zero
Yeah.
percent. And so you go, okay, 0%. Well, if I do literally anything,
Yeah.
I'm gonna move forward,
Yep.
right? It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful, and I love that mentality. So what I love about that is that you are down to earth. You are human. You do eat, which you find on Be Free with Z. You do eat like I eat. I mean, some of the time you eat better than me, but some of the time you let yourself. You go to the party, you go to the barbecue, you have the cake, you do the thing, you live your life. You live it freely, happily, and healthily. And the ideas that you have around it are just, yeah, just warm and welcoming and inviting and doable. It is doable. It does not have to be so hard, so strict, so stringent. It can be calm and relaxed and cool and inviting. And it doesn't have to be like this huge big monster that has to be done, or else Your demise.
Trying to take the all or nothing mindset out of it. Like you were saying, it's like just one step is okay. Just because you spilled a little wine doesn't mean you have to throw the whole glass on yourself. Just all, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Just
Yeah.
like little improvements, like
Yeah.
consistency is key. That's like what I try to emphasize.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a multi-tiered thing when you think about it. And I like to kind of wrap up with this.
Yeah.
I think when you think about health, it's not just food. It's the thoughts you have around food. It's the thoughts you have around self. It's the thoughts you've always had. It's also um what they, they say that we're born with a blueprint. And the blueprint is something that we've been given by our parents. It's a design by society, this and that, whatever. And then we move throughout to the present place and time, no matter what age you are, no matter your culture, we all have different. So it's breaking down the thoughts, the blueprints, the mindset, and then it's also breaking down the wants, the desires. And then it's breaking down whether you're increasing or decreasing. Are you adding to it or are you taking away from it? Right. So even if you just add some vegetables to your day to day, that may be
Always,
all you need to do, right? If you already have veggies but you want to decrease eating at your desk while you're working on your computer, that's health. That's nutrition, like you said. It's not just about the food. If you take a deep breath before you have every meal today, win. One
yeah,
meal, win.
yeah,
So
little win.
it's multi-tiered, and inside that you have a lot of potential for growth. You have a lot of wins available to you to start to get to experience all the different things that you've talked about today, which I learned a ton about. I wrote notes. So I'm gonna go and I'm gonna do a deep belly breath because it's almost 11:30 and we get to eat some lunch soon and continue on with our day. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Like I said, I could talk to you for a couple weeks about all the things.
Yeah.
And where can people find you because they need to find you?
Yeah, so I definitely agree. We definitely could have talked for a while. So you can find me on Instagram. So it's befree.withd. That's my Instagram handle. My website is befreenutritionli.com. So like Be Free Nutrition Long Island. So befreenutritionli.com. You can throw it right into Google and you'll probably, my business page will come right up. You can also always find me at Stoked Athletics Gym. I train there. So you can find me a few different places. And then also I always just encourage people, you can just send me a free message. Like I love DMs from people. I love direct messages. I'll always answer. Like I'm just a regular person on the other side. So I just love hearing from people, and even if they have questions, I love just answering. I'm a natural helper. So find me any way you can, and I'm here to help.
And we're going to link everything down below. And then in 2024, what do you got going on? Tell us your goals.
In 2024, this last month, I've been taking a little bit of a rest just to, I'm practicing what I preach. I'm really just trying to give myself some support for December. And then in 2024, I'm going to be offering just a little bit different of services. I adjusted the pricing a little bit and just the structure. And then also I'm working on making my group program, Be Free Foundations, into a self-paced course. So it's going to be something that you can just purchase and you can do at your own pace. It's going to be one-on-one for you. And then that's really what I have being worked on right now, but who knows? I like to keep things slow and steady though, you know.
Yeah, I love it. You're going to have to send that to me. And do you have a wait list? Do you have,
So you can apply. So my 2024 is a wait list.
okay,
So basically, what would happen is let's say you wanted to work with me, you would apply, whether it's through the link on my Instagram or on my website. So you would apply. It's a quick form. It's just like, hey, this is me. This is what I'm looking for. And then I would get back to you within usually about 48 hours. And
okay.
then we would chat a little bit, make sure we're the right fit, and then we would go from there. But yeah,
Love it. Okay, so we're going to put those links below, and if you want to be on Dee's wait list, you're going to go to her Instagram or her website, easy to come by, put the information in, click send, get it going. I love it. Deanna, thank you so much again. I really, really appreciate you taking your time, sharing your passion. There's so much that you shared with today. My dogs are going insane.
I
Um,
don't hear.
oh, good. I'm so glad because Amazon must be here or something. Um, Again, I thank you so much. And I hope that everybody can take this honestly and start to realize that it's not hard. It's small, it's tangible, it's doable. And the number one thing is you are worth it. You're worth you're worth it. Take the time, live for self, love for self, grow for self. Thank you so much for joining us today, everybody. I will be seeing you next week with another guest or maybe a soul series. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I will see you soon. Thank you so much. Bye.